Hello, mathematicians. Okay, so you've been learning how to multiply a whole number by a fraction using a variety of strategies. We've used fraction tiles, number lines, repeated addition, and even area model. So today I'm going to teach you how to solve problems involving multiplication of a mixed number by a whole number. One way we can do this is by drawing a visual model. What I want you to remember for today's lesson is that a mixed number is made up of a whole number and a fraction. All right, let's look at the problem. So the problem says Helen volunteers 5 days each month for 2 3/4 hours each day. How many hours does she volunteer each month? So when I read this problem, I need to think about all the information that they're giving me. All right, then I need to think about what is the question asking me to figure out. All right, so it says Helen is volunteering. She's volunteered for more than 2 hours, specifically for 2 3/4 hours each day. And then it says that she volunteers for 5 days each month. Okay, so I need to write out my equation. And the equation that I can write out for this is 5 times 2 3/4 equals V. Our V is going to represent that total number of hours that Helen volunteers. Some things that we need to think about. We already know we need to create our estimate. All right, so I know that she's volunteering for more than 2 3/4 hours. Okay, so I know her answer has to be greater than 2 3/4 hours. All right, if I just multiply 5 times 2, that would give me 10. Okay, if I multiplied 5 times 3, that would give me 15. But she's not volunteering for 2 hours or 3 hours. She's volunteering for 2 3/4 hours, which falls in between 2 and 3. So I'm guessing my estimate is that my answer is going to be between 10 and 15 hours total. Okay, let's get started. So first I'm going to use rectangles to represent the time Helen volunteers each day. So she volunteers each day 2 3/4 hours. So I need to draw 5 groups of 2 3/4. Okay, notice when I go to do I already have my 5 groups of 2 hours here. Notice when I go to do my 3/4 hours, I'm partitioning my rectangles into fourths because the denominator tells us how to partition our rectangles. So I'm going to partition them in half and then cut my halves into fourths. Then I'm going to go ahead and shade in how much she's volunteering. So 2 3/4. So here I have 5 groups of 2 3/4. Okay, so I can decompose or break down Helen's time into whole hours and fractional hours. Okay, so I have 5 groups right here. These are my whole hours. I have 5 groups of 2. And here I have my fractional hours, or my parts of an hour. Because remember, that's all a fraction is, part of a whole. So I have 5 groups of 3/4. All right. So I have my 5 groups of 2 hours and then my 5 groups of 3/4 hours. So if I was to write that out, I could say my total amount of hours that Helen volunteers would be 5 times 2 plus my 5 times 3/4. And that's going to get me V. Okay, so first I need to determine the number of whole hours that was represented. Okay, I'm going to count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I see that she has 10 whole hours because 5 groups of 2, or 5 times 2, is equivalent to 10. Okay, now I want to determine the total number of fractional parts, or fourths, of an hour. Okay, so I'm going to go in and count my fourths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so I see that there are 15 fourths of an hour. 5 groups of 3/4, which is the same thing as 15 groups of 1/4, or 15 fourths. All right. So I know that 15 fourths, we can't leave that like that because that's improper. Improper fraction is where the numerator is greater than the denominator, and we cannot leave it like that. We have to change that into a mixed number. So I need to go through and see how many wholes can I make out of this 15 fourths. So let's look. I know that it takes 4/4 to create a whole. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 1. Let's count another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 2. See if we can get another one. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3. Oh, and I only have 3. I don't have enough to make another hole, so this is my leftover. So I have 1, 2, 3 holes with 3/4 left over. So I
Okay,
would write
so
3
Miss Wilson
and
realized
3/4.
that the video cut this part out. So after we figured out that 5 groups of 2 is 10 and 5 groups of 3/4 is 3 and 3/4, we have to add our whole hours and our fractional hours to get the total amount of hours that Helen volunteers in a month. 10 plus our 3 and 3/4 is equal to 13 and 3/4. So that was our answer. Helen volunteers for 13 and 3/4 hours each month.
Okay, so let's recap what we did. Okay, so in order to determine the amount of time Helen volunteers each month, I multiplied 5 times 2 and 3/4. All right, I decomposed the mixed number here, the mixed number, into 5 groups of 2 and 5 groups of 3/4. I multiply 5 by 2 to get 10. Then I multiply 5 times 3/4 by counting up the units, the 1/4 units, to find the total of fractional hours. I also discovered that 5 times 3/4 is the same thing as, or equivalent to, 15 times 1/4. Then I converted. I noticed that that ended up getting me an improper fraction of 15/4. So I had to convert that improper fraction to a mixed number. Finally, I added the whole hours to the fractional hours for a total of 13 and 3/4 hours. Okay, so let's think back. Based on my estimate, does this answer make sense? It is definitely greater than 2 and 3/4. So then I said, okay, it should be between 10 and 15 hours. Well, our answer ended up being 13 and 3/4 hours. That actually was between 10 and 15. So that means my answer is reasonable. All right. Let's take a look back at this original model because I'm thinking about some things now. All right, it's kind of reminding me of that area model we did. Couldn't I represent 5 and 2 3/4 using 5 times 2 and 3/4 using the area model and not have to draw all of these individual fraction bars? Let's see if we can do it. All right, so with an area model, which we should know or remember from multiplying and dividing whole numbers, we represent each factor decomposed by their place value. So I'm going to draw my rectangle, my area model box. And there's that decompose word or break down. All right, so I would do 5. That would be that's my whole. So 5 times the 2, which would be 10. 5 times 2 gives me 10. And then 5 times 3/4, which would give me 15/4, or 3 and 3/4. Okay, remember, these are our partial products that's inside of the area model. We have to add these parts together to get our product. So 10 plus 3 and 3/4 gives me 13 and 3/4. So they're very similar. There's actually a connection between drawing those fraction tiles out and area model. All right, mathematicians. So I bet all of this seems super duper easy to you. So now what I want you to do is I'm going to present to you some practice problems. And I want you to remember, as you solve these problems, multiplying mixed numbers by whole numbers, visualize your story scenario by drawing those models and recording your equations to show your thinking. Here are your practice problems. So what I want you to do is pause this video, go through, read the problems, and do the work. Make sure when you're reading these word problems that you're circling those keywords, taking out the key information that you need, that you're making sense of the problem, and you're figuring out all the information, the key information that you need, because we don't need all of this. We need to pay attention to the key information, take that out, and remember to also look for what is the question asking you to do. What does it want you to figure out? Okay, so pause the video and solve the problems. All right, mathematicians, now it's time to check your work. Pause the video and look at it and see, check your work, see if you got it correct. And if you didn't get it correct, look at what I did and look at what you did and figure out where did you go wrong. Because it's okay to make mistakes as long as we look and see what the mistake was and learn from it so we don't make that same mistake over. Okay, same thing. Pause it and take a look. All right, mathematicians. Well, that sums up today's lesson. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your days. Please, 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 please do the rest of your digital learning day work. Take your time. Do not rush through your work. And just remember to continue to soar. And yes, you can even soar at home. So just continue to be great and have a great rest of your weekend. Can't wait to see you Monday.